What's good, everybody? My name is Valor, and it's been a while, hasn't it? I'll leave my explanation for that to a separate video, because that is not the scope of today's video. Today I wanted to talk about if resin 3D printing is really suitable for our hobby. And to explore this, I was sent the Geeetech Alkaid and the Wash and Cure Station, as well as a bottle of resin from the kind folks over at Geeetech. It's spelled a little bit weirdly. It's Geeetech with 3 E's. But I'll leave links down below to all this stuff if you want to get it for yourself, take a look at it, whatever. Now, if you want to save yourself a little bit of time and, you know, are the type that likes to fast forward through a video, try to get to the point, I do think that resin 3D printing has a place in the hobby. Might not replace FDM printing in terms of just the scale of blasters and stuff that we have now, but I still think it's a useful technology for what we do, you know, when it comes to 3D printed blasters and modding and stuff. Now, a little bit about this printer. It is an SLA resin 3D printer, so it doesn't use filament, it uses liquid UV curing resin, but the main idea is still there. It builds up layer by layer using its chosen material. This machine has a build volume of, I think it's 84 by 137 by 190, which is a decent size for this kind of machine, and it has a 2K resolution screen, which means that it can actually produce some really good detail on models. Like, my first test print was actually this little thing. This is a Fallout Wasteland Warfare Mini, and I'm gonna have to put a picture up because the camera I'm talking into right now is not equipped with a macro lens to actually get to see the kind of detail this is. That is absolutely nuts for something this tiny that is smaller than my thumb. Now, it's not going to be the highest resolution of any resin printer that's out there, but for the price, that is very good. And besides, most things that we'd be printing in the hobby aren't going to be that finely detailed anyway. Things like a fly core, which this one is a little bit messed up. This one's actually mirrored, which it shouldn't affect the function. It's just the text on the sides. But yeah, for something that is just more mechanical, flat objects and everything, at least it makes the text a little bit more readable. Again, you don't need super high resolution screens for most Nerf applications. And triggers, like lighter duty things, even though this resin is quite strong. It is an ABS-like resin. I'm not sure about the heat resistance. I'd have to look at the safety and technical specs datasheet thing, which, you know, if you are handling resin, by the way, be very careful with this stuff. Read all the precautionary labels and all that. Wear gloves, wear a mask and everything whenever you're handling it. And for the love of God, do not handle uncured resin with your bare skin. If you end up getting some on your hands, wash it off right away with, you know, first with a little bit of alcohol and then warm soapy water. But there are a variety of, you know, materials that you can get for these things, just like you can with FDM. And for something like this or this, the ABS-like resin is actually quite good. Toy companies use resin prototypes for a reason, because they're fairly durable and stuff. That scene in Small Soldiers was not, you know, a special effects thing. That was a real, you know, I think it was a laser-based SLA 3D printer, which just blew my mind back in the day. And even if you can't find a specific, you know, resin blend that you like, you can actually mix up your own. This cage was printed by my friend Dakota, or, you know, Stronghold Customs, and he has his own proprietary blend of resins that is actually very strong for components like this. He printed an entire second-degree burn in resin, and it was solid too. And that thing was heavy. Like, that is one downside to resin. Like, if you want it to be nice and durable and everything, you will want to print things completely solid. So that will be a lot of material and also a lot of weight in the final product, but you can do it as a proof of concept. Most things that we'd want for the hobby would be, you know, scar barrels, that sort of thing. And I have seen some scar barrels out there, and people have been skeptical about them because notoriously resin can be a bit brittle. And yes, if you are going to be exposing this stuff to repeated UV exposure like we are outside, like we do, you'll want to hit them up with a clear coat to protect it. But regular plastics will also degrade with UV as well. It's just a flaw with the materials. And even if you're wanting to do a build and everything, and you're not going to be using, say, a resin printer for anything structural, if you're someone like me who likes to do a lot of custom work, having this to do lots of greebling on, like especially if you're wanting to do small tiny details, like say, you know, the winged skull on the side of a bolter or something, You can reproduce those with FDM, but it's going to take a lot more work to get the details, you know, worked out and fine-tuned and everything. And like the only way you can get that is with like a really fine nozzle, and that just increases your print time exponentially on an FDM machine. With resin, your print time is dictated by how much build volume vertically you are taking, considering it cures the entire, you know, layer at once. So that means that things like this only take like 5.5, 6 hours as opposed to like 8 that I normally would if I was printing this absolutely solid with a 0.2 layer height and my 0.4 nozzle and my usual settings. Sure, I can push prints faster and everything. You know, people have bamboos these days, but for something like this that has very, very tight tolerances and everything, and is very accurate with like all the sharp angles and stuff, like if you're using a 0.6 nozzle to try to speed things up or whatever, you will be rounding off some details. And this thing has a super flat and smooth finish, which means putting a magazine into this fly core is super, super smooth. Which, that's another thing that gets me excited about this, is like things like scar barrels and stuff. With a, you know, the only way to get a smoother sort of feel to reduce drag on the dart is to print with a finer layer height or whatever. With this, you're perfectly fine. I know I keep rambling on that fact, but that is a very big benefit to using a resin printer. And one thing I haven't mentioned yet is the price of this 3D printer right now. It is $100, which is nuts for the quality this thing can produce. Like, even if you were just wanting a resin printer to print, you know, tabletop minis and stuff, that is a really good price, considering, like, and you honestly don't need the wash and cure station. It's just a nice thing to have. You can wash and cure your prints, you know, using, you know, denatured alcohol, isopropyl alcohol, and then just curing in the sun. Which I do recommend you cure your prints in water though, because it helps it cure better. Which a lot of these things I did cure in water. Like the sword on this would snap more easily if I hadn't done the water curing. The water curing actually helps it retain a bit of flexibility, which is really neat. And if you've gotten to the end of the video, I appreciate you very much for listening to me ramble. Again, I'm going to explain myself later on why I've been gone and everything, but I would do very dearly want to thank, you know, you guys for watching and the patrons who have stuck by me. I know the list of patrons is a bit shorter now, which I completely understand because I've not been uploading videos. I've been trying to produce value other ways, but you know, times get tough and all that. Some people would have stayed otherwise, which I am very flattered that they wanted to stay on and stuff. But yeah, link down below if you want to join the patrons, patron-only Discord, all that jazz. And again, thanks to Geeetech for sending me these machines and stuff and letting me take a look at resin 3D printing for myself, apart from just, you know, secondhand being given like cages and stuff from my friend and all that. And yeah, my name is Valor. Thanks for watching.